Let's take a look at Teck Resources stock this morning. It is currently under pressure, down by nearly 4% as the company announced it has withdrawn its federal application to build the massive oil sands project called Frontier. This withdrawal is keeping the spotlight on Canada's fight to balance its environmental policies alongside the energy sector. Joining me now to discuss what's ahead for Teck Resources is Bill Harris. He's partner and portfolio manager at Avenue Investment Management. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me on this morning.
In the break, you said that you haven't been looking at the stock for a long time, but now that they've made this decision, you're looking at it with renewed interest. Can you explain why?
Well, this is our big Canadian mining company. We don't have an Anglo America. We don't, and we don't have Rio Tinto, BHP. We had an opportunity to have one of those, but Falconbridge, Noranda, all those ones sort of disappeared. And Teck is the big mining company that we have left. And so it's very interesting to follow. You know, the phone-in shows, everybody will ask, Teck at some point, over the course of the show. But this is actually where it gets interesting. And the stock can sort of bump along between $20 and $30 on a good day. But now, with the release of sort of saying, I'm not even going to wait for your regulatory, which implies that they're going to take over $1 billion write-down on the project. It's sort of putting it on the shelf for the time being. But it also, mostly for us, exposes that the rest of their business isn't necessarily doing all that well either. They're doing a copper expansion in Chile, but copper is just as affected on a global basis as the other base metals. Chile is being affected by the sort of permitting issues and unrest in Chile. Then you have to remember that half of steel production is in China, and really Teck Resources is a metallurgical coal company. So if I was sitting here just saying I'm about to spend $20 billion building this oil sands project and the rest of my business isn't going as well, you know what, we're just going to stick it on the shelf for a bit. And I read the Don Lindsay note this morning as well, and just sort of saying, but while I shelve it, could you guys in the federal government please clearly define what the rules are so that we know what we're doing?
You mentioned that Teck didn't even wait for the feds to make a decision that was expected to come at some point this week, as early as tomorrow. Why do you think they didn't wait? Why not get a yay or nay from the government before deciding whether to shelve this project?
Yeah, I would have said the same sort of thing too. So I think one is sort of guessing what was going on in that meeting and sort of saying, well, we're probably not going to build it anyway. At these oil prices and at this takeaway pipeline capacity, it's probably a marginal project. So why have us be the target and the bad guy, put the attention back on the federal government, because we probably weren't going to really go ahead with it anyway. And so that's the one key piece. I also want to say what's interesting about Teck, because it is sort of a big metallurgical coal, copper, zinc company that we're looking for, and just going through the numbers over the weekend again, saying, okay, now it's coming off, it starts to get interesting. Over the last 15 years, it has traded around $5, $6 twice. When things are going bad, like global epidemics slowing down global manufacturing and commodities, this is sort of the first stop we'd like to go to. And it's in a lot better shape than it was in 2016. They had $9 billion of debt and really wasn't sure what the profitability was. They've done a great job over the last few years getting it down to $5.5 billion debt. And the magical thing about this bond market is all these companies that have termed out their debt. Teck has got a huge amount of debt out in 2040. So it really doesn't seem like there's a big credit event that is going to happen with Teck. So it should be a lot better. And we would guess that it's not going to bottom in the $5 range. You're getting closer to the bottoming around here.
In your note to our Chase producer, Eva, you noted that this sounds like Teck is trying to create, quote, political pressure. To what end, though? I mean, they've scrapped this project. What would be their goal? Are they hoping to stick their necks out for the next guy, the next people trying to come up with an oil sands or a resource project?
Good. I do want to touch on that.
Okay, go ahead.
So I
Take it
know
away.
we've only got so much time to hit this. So it's really the political pressure is Jason Kenney, Alberta, saying, okay, come on, I'm trying to get stuff done here. And what is clearly define the rules. So Teck was the big one, and the federal government was really in an incredibly uncomfortable position of saying, I've got my climate policy, but you know what, we're in the oil and gas business. So whether we need more oil sands projects or not, you could say Canada produces, and it's going to be producing around 4 million barrels from Western Canada, which is a lot. So if you have so much pipeline capacity, as long as you're filling that pipeline capacity, what's actually wrong with 4 million barrels? So the next project that comes along, which is interesting, is Suncor builds all its infrastructure, the plant that produces the oil at the other side, but you have to have the mining operation. One of their first big mining operations is going to roll off in 2035. which seems a long time from now. But they have now indicating that they're going to start to permit the next mine, in the Suncor chain, which is 15 years from now. So they feel like they have to go that far ahead of the curve to get the mine. It's not a mine expansion, it's keeping the mine rate flat. I built on my plant, I mine this thing for 50 years, but the first one's rolling off 2035. Don't want to make this too complicated. But because the next one is going to be 15 years from now, I got to start now, and I'm going to stick that to the Liberal government.
I see.
And so it's going to be really interesting to say, okay, but I need to permit something that's already existing.
For foreign investors who are watching this situation, we have a lot of people suggesting that the Teck Resources decision has echoes of Kinder Morgan pulling out of Trans Mountain Pipeline, and that we have seen a lot of people flee the oil sands. At the same time, we have the OPP appear to be enforcing an injunction, CN Rail's injunction against the protests that have ensnarled rail traffic. This kind of push-pull between how business-friendly Canada actually is. What are you hearing from your peers outside Canada about their attitude towards the business friendliness of this country?
Right. Don't talk to me about resources or infrastructure. And so friends in the U.S., friends that do this sort of sell Canadian businesses to Europeans, sort of stockbrokers, investment bankers, said they can't even talk about infrastructure or resources in Canada. It is complete zero. And you talk to the trading desks.
What do you mean they can't talk about it?
Don't even talk to me about it. I'm not even going to. I have no interest in it. So, so Canada still has interesting technology, Shopify, this kind of stuff. They will create attention there. But our traditional resource business is completely, dead from an investment point of view and a growth point of view. We still look at it. If I spin it back to, viewers this morning, why do we own anything here? But there's nothing wrong with the stuff we've already built. That's not exciting for fresh money coming to Canada, but if you own Canadian Natural Resources, who's already built it, Suncor that's already built it, somebody else has spent the money to build the thing. Now we get to invest in it at this level and just sort of harvest the cash flow, with no expectation that oil is, necessarily has to grow.
All right. Well, Bill, we're going to have to leave it there, but thank you so much for your insights on this. That's Bill Harris. He's partner and portfolio manager at Avenue Investment.